Hi, I'm Catherine Comden, Behavior Program Manager at Willamette Humane Society. Have you ever wanted to make a difference? Are you looking for more purpose and to be part of a greater mission? Look no further than Willamette Humane Society because we have dozens of ways for you to get involved with compassionate services for people and pets. Our volunteers are our heartbeat, and we would never function without them. Find out how you can get involved on this week's Pets and People. Well, thank you for joining us, ladies. I'm so excited to have you on the program. This is Anna Schumacher, and she is our volunteer manager at Willamette Humane, and Nancy Sanchez, one of our very favorite volunteers. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So Anna, why don't we start with you? Let's find out a little bit about the volunteer program. For example, how many volunteers give their time to Willamette Humane?
Right now, we actually have over 900 volunteers active, which means that they're giving service anytime within the last 60 days. So it's pretty accurate to our most recent numbers.
900.
Wow. Yep.
And the question that I often get as behavior program manager, somebody will say, well, those are all dog walking volunteers, right?
Actually, the way that breaks down is we have about 12 dog walkers, 7 days a week for 3 shifts a day. So there are about 280 of those.
Wow.
And the rest of them are helping in places like our thrift store. Cat adoption ambassadors help match families to cats. We have people who do laundry for us and wash crates. So they're kind of all over our building and our property.
Right. I've seen them everywhere wearing the volunteer apron and just being so busy in so many different capacities. I truly think that we couldn't do what we do at the Humane Society and serving all the people and animals that we serve if we had any fewer volunteers.
No way. In fact, I can't really imagine what a day looked like that they only had 300 volunteers. Only 3 years ago they had 300 volunteers to run all of the programs we do now, and so I can't imagine what that would have looked like for our staff at that time.
So we have tripled that in 3 years' time. So there was a huge change in the volunteer the way the volunteer program was run, or the way we brought volunteers in, or the onboarding process, or
our now executive director actually started revamping some of our procedures for tracking training levels and providing training to volunteers via our staff members, including the role you're in now. Our behavior and training team started to integrate more of that with our volunteers, and the more we offered them, we found the hungrier they were for that animal knowledge, which was kind of cool to find out.
It is cool. So many people are attracted to the Humane Society because of the animal services that we offer, and I think that was one of the reasons that Nancy came on board. Nancy, you've been a volunteer with us for a really long time. How long?
13 years.
13 years ago, you made the decision to come on board, and can I ask why? What was some of the...
Well, I have a real passion for dogs, and I saw an ad in the newspaper that said that they were having a training class for something called a canine coach, and I wanted to learn more about training dogs, so I signed up. At the time, it was 2 hours every Saturday for 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it's quite extensive.
Yeah.
And came on board and took it and loved it ever since.
So as a canine coach, what were some of your duties at that time?
Well, you were supposed to take a dog or 3 and work with them 15 minutes each. And the trouble with that is that that's not really enough time.
Right.
And we're so involved and passionate about the dogs that it ended up being maybe 1 or 2 dogs and an hour and a half with each one.
Right. So you ended up spending more time. And you have served in a number of different roles in the dog area of the shelter. Would you like to talk about some of the other things that you've done?
Well, there's the dog walkers. You mentioned that we have those. There are now kennel buddies where you don't have to commit to a 2-hour weekly shift, but you come in on your own time and you just spend time in the kennel as a buddy with the dogs. And you get training for everything. Right. There's so many training activities, or opportunities, I should say. So I also do the CCTV presentations for the adoptable dogs.
I love that. So you need to tune in and watch her on the CCTV Adoptable Pets program, which airs right here on the same channel. And
I just do the dogs. I don't mean to minimize the importance of the cats, but that's just where my training and my passion is. So I just do the dogs. I got training to be a pet ambassador. So like if you come into the shelter and you're looking for a pet, I'm one of the ones you can talk to, describe the size or activity level or age that you're, or even breed that you're looking for, and I'll help match you up. You always spend time visiting. I can give tips and stuff. But Catherine has trained me a lot on behavior. So
I love it. My office is down at the end of the adoption dog hallway, and so I'll hear Nancy coming, and she's talking up the dogs and telling the people coming in all about the animals that we have in the shelter. And in order to do that, you have a really deep understanding of who they are, where they've come from. I mean, I know you're doing your homework on these animals, and it's just really impressive. Yeah, I really appreciate all that you do. It's fantastic. And so tell us more, Anna, about some of the other volunteer opportunities. I know there's some big projects that have been completed by volunteers of late.
In fact, Nancy had brought up that she does her program about adoptable dogs, but a really cool way we've started working more on getting our cats out in the public and really engaging our community is the Kitten Caboodle down at the mall, which we started solely with volunteers. This year we're going to be able to start with our first paid staff member who will be working down at the mall. So as you know, down in the mall, there are seasonal things that come up around Christmas time. The Honey Baked Ham is the store we're going to be sharing. During the summer, it sits empty. So we have an awesome volunteer.
This is down at the Salem Center Mall.
Yeah,
downtown.
exactly. We have an awesome volunteer who found out that she could do something with that vacancy and got us involved. And we now have a store at the mall where you can buy kittens. You can't really beat that.
Right.
And we found that it opened up a whole different avenue to our community of people who weren't really aware of us before this store, which is exactly what we were looking for.
Right, really exciting, and I love the volunteer support again. And a lot of the people that are bringing in the kittens, the adoptable kittens, those people have fostered the kittens.
Right.
Which pulls from another group of volunteers that we have, which is the whole foster program.
Exactly. So the way the Kitten Caboodle works is we're open a few days a week. Those fosters bring in their kittens and hope not to have to bring any of them home at the end of the day. Sometimes they're bringing kittens back and forth, and so they've been really involved with us. That's a lot to ask, because when we ask them to be fosters, we're saying, hey, will you take kittens into your home, take care of them, feed them, love them? But they're going this extra mile of trekking them down to the mall, hoping to get a family and bringing them back home when they don't. And we also had them staying in the store to show the public the kittens, find good matches of personalities, because you have those shy babies that want quiet homes and those crazy little babies that need some activity level. So yeah, our volunteers are so hands-on, and I think it stems from that love of these creatures we're all caring for, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's that common passion, is that everybody is driven by a love to serve the animals and to help them any way that we can.
Right.
And that was really brought forward when we had this huge project fence that was completed a few months ago, that it finally was finished.
I think it was 2014 or 15 that we finally wrapped that.
Okay, because and I just feel like it's always a work in progress, because they keep coming back and adding a gate here, tweaking something there, and just constantly improving what we have. Can you tell us the story of that volunteer project and how that got started?
That was before my time, but I actually found out that one of our awesome Sunday dog walking volunteers is involved with the National Guard and pulled in a bunch of his guys to help do this fence, because we needed burly men, and a lot of times it's the ladies who like those dogs. So it was kind of fun to have them come in and pour cement and knock down those poles. Even continuing, we've had groups come in to volunteer just for one day during the weekend, and they'll be staking down the bottom of fences, because dogs, they like to dig and get under, and we have continual effort making sure that those lines stay secure, which is nice.
That and beautification of the property all the time with volunteer help. I went outside the canine classroom where I do all the dog training classes that I teach on Saturdays, and I walked outside, and there was this whole team of volunteers out there shoveling mulch and pulling weeds and just doing all the things that we as staff just simply don't have time to do. And I'm always impressed by the caring in the community that manifests in these different ways. So even if you're not terribly good with animals, you don't have to be good with animals to participate and to help. We certainly like those people, and we're doing more and more with the behavior and training program that you brought up. I'm really excited. I'll talk about that a little bit. We're building a training team that is going to be working with the animals in the shelter, specifically the dogs that are the most problematic. When they come in, they might come in and they might have some issues about being left alone in the kennel, so that when they see people, they're really jumpy and mouthy and grabbing for attention and difficult to handle, and so therefore at risk of injuring somebody because they're just overexcited. Those animals need to be trained before they're going to be able to be placed in a home and understand the rules of the home. We have other animals that come in and they're just so fearful that they are flat in the kennels and they don't want to be touched. You know, they just hunker down in the back and they're afraid. And our training team and a lot of our dog walking volunteers who have been involved for so long are so patient and kind, and it always amazes me how much time a volunteer will take to sit down and participate with that animal until they're ready to find their legs. I always say, can you put your legs on?
In fact, do you remember we had a dog a little while ago, maybe a couple months ago, that would not deal with the slick floor.
Right.
We were sitting in a meeting trying to figure out how to get this dog to go to the bathroom, and we had a volunteer go, I know, he needs a red carpet. Hopped down to Home Depot, bought some carpets to make it more comfortable for him to walk, and we laid those out for one dog.
We did.
Well, don't forget the time that we had that one that we just couldn't get him. He was so shy, just couldn't get him to move, and he was a large puppy, and you couldn't pick him up, and you couldn't haul him. We just don't do that. So we took a little luggage cart or a little flatbed cart, rolled it up to the kennel, and we got him to get onto the cart, and then we would just roll him down the hallway out the door, and he loved it. And I tell you, I think he went to a home with the skateboarders because he would get on a skateboard.
Yes.
It was so cute. It was so cute.
I don't think I'd heard that story before.
Oh,
That's
yeah. We'd
awesome.
say, here he comes. And they would just, here comes the cart with this large puppy on it.
That's
just
fantastic.
so happy.
It worked.
Yeah, it did.
Whatever works, whatever works. And that's the message that we hear over and over, is that people are willing to do whatever it takes.
And what I like about volunteering, and just even with the dog category, I mean, you've got the walkers and the kennel buddies, but then you've also got the ambassadors helping with the public. You've got play groups. And we do play groups out there, which help behavior assessment and bringing shy dogs out of their shell, or just more information for us to assess their ability to be, say, a dog park dog. Many people just want to socialize their dogs in the neighborhood, and some of them want to just go to the dog park and just watch them. Well, these play groups go on. I mean, that you can be a volunteer to do that. Of course, there's the thrift store, and there's the customer service, and there's transport, and there's the spay and neuter clinic. I mean, all these people find a niche, and then also laundry, and some of us who
and
just
dishes,
right. Yes, and some of us who just really like to be involved and love it there. Everybody is so nice. Right. I mean, I'm looking at my volunteer manager, and I'm looking at the behavioral manager, and all this wonderful. And this is just a sample of the nice people that are there. It's just so much fun. So not only do you go, but you're among people who have your same passion. I used to, growing up, love animals, and everyone just thought, man, there's something wrong with you. You like dogs and cats and horses so much. But I came to realize when I started at the Humane Society, gosh, I am not alone. And everybody's just on the same page. We just really, really care. So if you're heartbroken over somebody who's just a dog or a cat that's just an old one, you say, oh, I really hope they find a home. And when they do, I mean, it's just like,
it's a party.
There's a party, and people run up to you and say, have you heard so-and-so got adopted? Or have you, and it's just an exciting
It's like a great big
place.
family, isn't it?
You just
It's
want to
really
be there a lot.
Yeah. In fact, one of our volunteers, you reminded me, it writes Adopt an Oregon Dog blog, which you can, we'll put up on the screen there so they can see the web address for that. And she writes a fantastic blog with great pictures and thorough descriptions of the dogs that we have available for adoption. And we also have a cat blog too, that of people who are passionate about the cats, sharing the information, trying to get these cats into the appropriate homes, and just really exciting that everybody there has such a passion for the animals and getting them out into the perfect match home. Yeah. It's really fun stuff. Yeah. So we have some other people that are behind the scenes working as volunteers and doing strange things. One time I walked into our education hall, which is just this big place where we have a lot of staff meetings and trainings and the volunteer orientation. And we had a volunteer in there who was building cat beds and these platforms. And I walked in and went, oh, you're the reason those things exist. You know?
Yes.
So people bringing their own skills and passions
Yes.
into what we do. And
I don't mean to interrupt, but I just say don't forget the stuffed Kongs, you know.
I know.
We have a volunteer who goes home and she'll take all these washed Kongs, which are hollow dog toys, and hopefully you know what they are, but she'll stuff them with their kibble, and then because we're trying to become a peanut butter free facility because people are allergic and it's dangerous, so we use cream cheese, and we put the cream cheese on the end so that the kibble doesn't fall out, and then freeze them. While she'll take them home and she'll do bucket loads of these Kongs and then bring them back.
I'm always amazed when I open that freezer door and there's just a
Always,
wall of Kongs in there.
And
I'm
some
like,
of them are this big for the little tiny little guys, and some of them are football size, you know, for the bigger
true.
dogs.
Yeah.
And it's just fun
Yeah.
to think of all these different things that they can do.
it's really true. And I was going to brag on Anna for a minute, because shortly after Anna started at the Humane Society as volunteer manager, we were doing a revamping of the canine classroom. And that meant that we were getting new flooring and we were having paint, and there was this big empty wall. And I went to, in a staff meeting, I think we were talking about what are we going to put on the wall? I have no idea. And along with one of the other staff members, Anna came up with this idea for this stenciling that went across the big wide wall. And I've got photos of you, I think, up on the
I think we
ladder,
do.
which is not something I could do. And you're up there painting purple dogs on the wall.
Yeah, I had to kick her out because she couldn't handle me on the ladder.
This is true. This is true. I talk about desensitizing to fear, and my
That's
fear
right.
of heights is well known at the Humane Society, and so that's something I just don't do, is
Too
being up there.
funny.
But people can use their gifts, and there you are, not being a manager of anything, but actually painting, which brings in the whole idea of as a community, we do whatever it takes.
Yep.
We do whatever it takes there.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, her mention of the training room, that's one of the things we do
gosh.
is we train. And as a volunteer, as a dog volunteer, you can have training, and you get an opportunity to take a shelter dog to the obedience classes. So even if you at home have the most perfect dog and you don't need obedience classes for your own dog, as a volunteer you can take this rowdy, jumpy, mouthy little adolescent
Crazy pants.
yeah, crazy pants, good word. And you get to take the shelter dog to the obedience class. Not only gives you a better skill, but it also helps make the dogs more adoptable.
Right.
So when an adopter comes in, is looking for a dog, you can say, well, this one knows sit, and
Right.
this one knows, you know, lying down and waiting at the door, and things like that. And it's just another opportunity for volunteers.
Right. Really great for the dogs, and amazing too, I think, for the volunteers. I think out of that class, there's a real cohesiveness that comes. It's kind of, again, the community support, and I see you guys in the hallways, and you all know each other better because you've been spending all this time together, purposefully working, and then it's fun to hear about the training skills that then get to go home.
Yep.
And so it's a great way to get training for free. So
And-
that people can come in who maybe want to do some more work with their own dog at home. They come to the training class and they learn how to train a dog, and then they're able to take that information home to their own pets.
Another volunteer who does a lot of working with one-on-one special training worked with a dog that was large, and he was plain black. So, you know, the black animals are the ones that are hardest to adopt out because everybody wants some little white spot or something. Anyway, she worked with him for a long time. And a person who had a beautiful home and land in the country adopted him. And so she made an appointment after 2 weeks to go out and visit the home and make sure that the dog was, you know, doing well. And she had worked with this dog for so long. Well, she went out to this beautiful home and all this acreage, and she told me, she said she took the dog aside and said, don't blow this, because you have just won the lottery here. And it was cute to see.
So
I love
darling.
it. I always love the stories about the the adopters who end up taking home our senior dogs. And a lot of times these senior dogs get a lot of extra love and attention, but at the shelter, but sometimes they can end up waiting quite a long time. And recently we had a volunteer who took home what were then labeled the potatoes, because they were two little chihuahuas that that needed a place to just relax. They had been in the shelter for a while because they were senior pets, and they were doing okay, but it was just pretty pathetic because they were only about this big, and they had this big double wide kennel that they were in, and they were just sitting there waiting and waiting, and she came in and said, that's not okay. These dogs need to go home and have a respite from the shelter. And she loved on them and sent lots of pictures, and ultimately I think those dogs were featured on the blog and adopted just last weekend. It was very exciting. So there's another way to serve, is to be involved in the respite program as a foster, being able to take dogs home and give them an opportunity to de-stress and decompress from the shelter. Even as good as we've got it there, the dogs and cats are extremely well cared for. The dogs get 3 walk shifts a day. They get play groups several times a week. They get specialized training. They get our open paw programs. That means we're feeding them throughout the day at their kennel front. They get all kinds of kennel buddy time and walks and adopt me events. We'll have dogs.
And massages. We have some volunteers who know massage, and they will come in, and the elderly dogs that have maybe some arthritis issues or something, but also the stressed out dogs, they get a massage.
Right. It's absolutely amazing. We have a volunteer who's so in tune and able to bring out the dogs who have had, both the dogs that are way too edgy and up, and the dogs that need to come up a little bit because they're a little bit afraid. So,
and I will also say she takes care of our cats. We have a pretty high percentage rate of save for our dogs, but our cats struggle, and in general, cats are sassy, and that's a little bit harder to get them comfortable, especially in a shelter environment. We have her who offers her massage services and really takes quiet time with them to let them know they're safe and that it's all right, because even adopters who, bless their heart, want to find animals to take into their homes can be overwhelming because there's hundreds of them throughout the day. And we have her come in and offer her massage services, and we also have a really cute group of preschoolers who come in and read to our kitties, which offers them, that simulated home environment where there's just a kid around making noise, and it really helps settle them and make them feel like it's not all changing a litter box and food and then medicine, and takes them out of that kennel stress.
Yeah, that human contact for our companion animals is so important. These are not, obviously, these are not wild animals. These are animals that we have bred for companionship with us and who are seeking a social bond. And when they are deprived of that in any way, it's very stressful. And so just by nature of it being a shelter, a sheltering place where it's a stressful place because of the routines that we have. And as I said, we could never do what we do without the vast number of volunteers bringing all that time and talent and attention and love and passion to the care of the animals and the staff. I have to say, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I have contact with volunteers who are, they've got full-time jobs and families. I mean, these are not just people with too much time on their hands. These are busy people. These are people who are already giving. They're plugged into the community somewhere else, or they're raising a family, or they're working full-time, or maybe all of those things. We do have a fair number of retired volunteers as well, but they're not lazy people either. No. They've got 15 other things going on, and yet they are fulfilling their commitment. They've made a commitment. I think the minimum is, a 6-month commitment at a time?
Yeah, for 2 hours a week.
To come in for that block of time and say, here I am. Here's how I can be used. And then from that point forward, it's just a matter of fulfilling the commitment and being there when you said you were going to be there. And I'm just absolutely amazed at the depth and passion and commitment that volunteers have brought to us. And you recently recognized volunteers. I walked into the volunteer room, and there was this flagship of little sticky notes all over. Did you have a sticky note for every single volunteer?
We had a sticky note for every volunteer who had offered service in the last year from that date. They had actually done over 38,000 hours, and that is something we could never pay anyone to do.
38,000 400,000 hours.
And in fact, what I found out in our database was we have over 400,000 hours logged. And this is just since we've had the technology to keep track. Over 25% of those 400,000 hours were offered by 26 people. We have those 26 quiet people who sit behind the scenes and do everything. And it's amazing. We have someone who sneaks in and bathes all the dogs every weekend, and nobody would even know that she does it all by herself. It's incredible.
I didn't know that was happening.
Yep.
That was happening when I'm not there. I did not know that. Now I need to know who that is. So we'll
You
get
won't
that
be
later.
surprised.
Okay. And so how do you go about recognizing volunteers, or I should say, other than the intrinsic job duties themselves, the value that they get from that, how do we recognize these wonderful people?
Yeah, so we do have Volunteer Appreciation Week, and it can be really hard to try and touch 900 people, but we had some little handouts and things. But we do love to get out of our office and mingle. You know, we find out if someone's animal has passed away, or a wedding is happening, or a baby is being born, because these are our family. You know, we say that, but it makes sense to me, because the shelter is a place for people to adopt fuzzy family members. That's the whole goal, is this family orientation. And so we really try to stay involved with people's lives outside of the shelter. Not many of us have lives outside of the shelter, but we do try to pretend that that's happening and keep in touch. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're just about out of time, so I thought I would wrap up. I wanted to thank you both again for taking your time out of your very busy schedules to come and tell the community about volunteering at Willamette Humane. If you would like to participate in volunteering at Willamette Humane Society, please give us a call. You can check our website at WHS4pets.org and just send us an email in the volunteer. There's a volunteer application there that you can fill out. Orientations are twice a month on
the first Monday and Thursday of every month at 5:30 p.m. in our shelter.
Okay, so they just come down. Do they have to fill out an application
Nope,
ahead of time?
there's no registration. You don't even have to commit to knowing you want to do it. Just come by, see what we're about. The orientation is a fantastic overview of what we do as a shelter and how much fun you can have as a volunteer. So it's a really nice way to break in and see if we're where you want to be.
And I would just like to add a disclaimer, because the main thing I get from people is, oh, I could never volunteer there. All those sad eyes. Oh, they're all those. I'd want to take them all home. And I said, oh, we train them to look pathetic so that you want to adopt them, maybe two. And then they always laugh. And I said, no, 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 you can be part of a wonderful, I mean, personally, I've worked with dogs that have become bomb detection dogs, and if I hadn't been frustrated with their focus on their ball and reported it, anyway, but service dogs and just out there in the community, even one became a search and rescue, but
don't you just think you just end up having 60 dogs?
yes,
That's really what it is.
Yes, and then we get so excited when they go home. So sad eyes aren't really sad. It's just more of an opportunity for us to just feel so much joy and love for the pets that are there.
That's the way that it goes.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks for coming, and thank you for checking out our show this time on Pets and People. We hope that you'll come down and visit us at Willamette Humane Society, where you can meet your #1 fan.
Ready? Go. Yeah, sounds like that. Great. As soon as she goes there, and then she so too.
Hi, buddy. Hi, honey.